Hey everybody, it's Mike DeShazer here in Seoul, South Korea at Proof, and today we're going to talk about how to test your investment or trading hypothesis via backtest. We'll also talk about how to create alerts for various trade strategy studies that you create so that you can send them to a webhook or to an email address when a certain event occurs. So let's sit down and take a look at that. Alright, in this video, we're going to take a look at how to create Pine scripts to create back tests in order to identify how well a strategy that you might come up with performs on historical data. So in this example, we have the velocity to inverse correlations to VIX and bond strategy. So this is a simple strategy that's overlaid on top of Ethereum to USD pair. And what it does is the average trade time is about 2 days. We can see the information here. So we have 2 days between each trade. The average gain is 4%. The max lost in the period is 1.6%, which is a pretty decent drawdown. And we have a pretty high profit factor, and the percent of profitable trades is 88. It's a small sample size. We have only 2020 data, and there's 18 closed trades, which is about 36 opens and closes if you add them up. And the profitability of this is going to be 73%. Now, the first thing I will say here is that past performance is never the best indicator for future performance, but it does give a window into how markets potentially were working previously. With that said, let's take a look at the code. This is all open source, and you can get this strategy by looking at the link below. Before we jump into that, let's talk about how one might identify an interesting strategy to actually use. So me personally, I have an extension that I created on the Chrome browser, which allows me to run through a variety of potential strategies very rapidly and see how they all perform so that I can get an idea of how different strategies affect different assets. So I can move to the 1 day, the 5 minute, 1 minute, or any other time interval, and then I can kind of, see how well a variety of strategies perform. For example, this one did not do very well. I'm just going to rewrite the code. It just updates this code. That one didn't do well. It's a 40% drawdown. Usually you want to go with a strategy that has lower risk, even if it's not that profitable. And maybe in a few moments we'll see something that does a little bit better. This one was a little bit better, but not great. 47% drawdown, very risky. Oh, this one is not so bad. A better return, 374%, but it's has a pretty big drawdown. And so what you'll do when you write these codes, you'll go through a lot of different assumptions and tests. Well, this one's pretty good. And you'll come up with the strategy that works well for you, and we're going to talk about how to do that. So I'm going to click print report. You won't see this on your screen. This is just a special edition that I've added, and it basically allows me to then see, generate into natural language how this particular asset performs. So this is a little more complicated, and if you're a professional trader and you're interested in kind of having word-based information that can be converted into code that can give you an indicator of how well certain assets perform, you can send an email to support. There's a link down in the description, and we do have packages available for that. If you look up here, you'll notice a username for the Giving Desk. It's a nonprofit that I'm a part of that provides trading desk space for the homeless and students in underserved communities that's geared towards providing education around financial literacy, and we provide some of the really cool and awesome tools that we have in-house for free. But in this video, we're going to more so take a look at how to craft this code and how to generate Pine scripts that can tell us something about a particular asset or a particular asset and time period. So let's take a look. So the first thing you'll need to do is type in the ticker that you want to start with. Let's start with FUSD. So let's just pick the first one. And let's click full featured chart. And you'll usually start out with a chart like this. Mine by default has a lot of extra indicators that I have saved on this. Let me get rid of those. So usually you'll get a chart like this. This is Ethereum USD. This is the 1 day chart. You can switch to the 1 minute, the 5 minute, etc. Let's look at the 1 day. You'll then go to your Pine editor and you'll just have this code, just a blank script. You can go to the link provided and grab, for example, this Pine script down here. And then you can copy and paste it over here. So let's take a look at what's happening. So the first thing is I'm just defining the strategy. I'm saying here's the name of my strategy. Here's the currency I'm starting with, USD. Here's the value, $100,000. And then you could put in other parameters such as the commission per trade, etc. Further, I'm setting a stop loss and a take profit. So this has a 2% stop loss. So if the price goes down by 2%, then the trade will close. And if the trade goes up by 2%, then it'll close. So this just says when it goes in one particular direction, close the trade. And this kind of gives me an idea of how well a particular strategy operates in the very short term or to the next big price movement. Then down here, I've left a bunch of assets that will probably be useful to you that we're not going to actually use here, but that can be used, and I'll show you how to use those momentarily. What we're doing here is we're saying we have a security. We're going to look at Coinbase BTC USD, and we're going to look at the closing price. So if you look at the candlestick chart, the close is just where it ends. So this one closes down because it's red. That's the price. This one, because it's green, closes up. Obviously, the end of that candlestick is just, it went up to that price during this particular day. And then the close here is up because it's green. And then, the close here is down because it's red. So we're going to look at the closing data for all of these. And then I have separated benchmarks out. So this is the S&P 500. And the reason I've listed these is because you got to get all of these different codes. And if you want to play around, these are just a bunch of nice things to have, like the high yield bond ETF or the corporate bond, most popular ETF, or the high growth equity stocks, the VIX, etc. This MOM is momentum. BTC RSI is just the RSI, the relative strength index of Bitcoin, etc. And then we have my favorite, which is correlations. I'm a macro guy. I have the theory that the financial system is one actual big system, and that when things happen in bonds, they affect things in equities, and when things happen in equities, they affect things in futures, and when things happen in futures, they affect things in other commodities or cryptocurrencies and whatnot. And so DeFi falls into that, and I like to look at a lot of these things that are happening to craft out various strategies. But some people are more technical and they'll look at maybe just momentum or other areas. There are many things that work for various people. Usually what works for one person won't work so well for another person. So then I create a signal. This is just a line that's going to indicate to me at the bottom when I run my strategy of where things were. By default, it will always be 0, and I will move it up or down so I can see kind of what's going on. I'm then setting a start time and an end time. So this is set to 2030. This just says, just keep going, run this backtest till whenever, and it starts January 1st. 1/1/2020. So this is just going to be for this year, how things went. And then the magic. Down here is where we set our our entry strategy. So we'll say if core VIX, which is defined over here. So let me make this bigger. So then we'll say core VIX is the correlation between this asset and VIX. Correlation is just a built-in function inside of PineScript, which is great. It'll tell me the correlation. And just to give you an example of what that looks like, I can go here, FX, type in correlation, coefficient, and then I can put a particular asset like VIX. So I have the volatility here. And so as you can see, the VIX is correlated, and then it crosses, it's not correlated, and then it's inversely correlated. So they're doing the opposite thing. And then Ethereum and the VIX are more correlated. This is 0.4, so not completely correlated, but correlated. And it's just the strength of the correlation is indicated here. Here they're inversely correlated. So there's something going on here, right? The F and the VIX have, if they're not correlated at all, it'll just stay pretty flat. So I'll go back to my Pine editor and I'll look. So this information is here, and I'm saying when the VIX crosses under 0.1, negative 0.1, which means it's going towards an inverse correlation, or it crosses under, or high yield bonds cross under negative 0.1, so it's becoming inversely correlated, or corporate bonds, which are the big bonds like the S&P 500 bonds, crosses under 0.2. This is when corporate bonds are beginning to lose correlation with the Ethereum market. And this is on the 1 day. We could put this on the 5 day. We selected here. A strategy will run on any. You could put this on any asset. This just doesn't work for Ethereum, but you can get an idea using this strategy kind of what works. And if this occurs, I'm going to move my signal down to negative 100. And this is just an arbitrary thing I'm doing so I can see where my trades are occurring. And then I'll do strategy.entry. This is the magic in buy strategy.long. You can do strategy.short to short things, and I'm saying when on the window, and this window is between January 1st and until 2030. So I can run, I'll enter, and then my exit, obviously, strategy.exit will be here. So when the stop level is at my stop level and my take level. So I'll plot this out, my signal, so I can see what's happening. Plot just says show me the line, and then I'll click add to chart. So I'll click add to chart, and then there I go. So now this shows me where all my trades occurred. So this says that the average number of bars between my trades is 2. I have a 4% return on the average trade. Now, I do have a take profit at 2%, so why did it close out? And the reason for this is because the price can move in a certain period greater than 1 or 2%, and it does each trade at the close. So it's, but that's a really good indicator. And usually trades strategies, I'm using a really good example here, or a decent example here, because it kind of demonstrates something that works well, which I always find is a better way to show examples. And then we have a 1.6% drawdown, which is a pretty decent drawdown. If you had $100,000, the maximum you'd be losing on trades would be $2,000 during the duration of the entire year. Usually you want your drawdown to be lower than 5% of your total capital. And of course, when you're trading, you don't want to just trade one particular asset. Usually you'll want to have 50 assets or more. So this would have just been for maybe a slither of your portfolio, 2% to 5% maybe. And so then you have your profit factor, and then you have your percent profitable. So 88% of these trades were profitable, 18 closed trades. Usually if you're going to base a strategy on a particular type of trade, you'll want more data, but this is more of a twice a month kind of strategy. It's not very active. It's somewhere in between. And the profit factor is 73%, which is, in a bull market, which this year has been, is doing okay. And so that's pretty much how you see that. You can see your performance summary, so you can see all of the trades, list of trades. If you click on that, all of the trades that you had, whether it was a stop loss or a take profit, etc. And you can see, how well you performed. So that's essentially, you can play around with the code. If you want to exit a trade, then not using a stop loss, maybe you want to get rid of stop loss, you can comment this out by putting 2 slashes next to here. But if you don't want to do that, or if you want to keep it, and you can set, like, for example, when there's a crossover or correlation of, close the buy strategy. So what that'll do is when another event occurs, you'll close out your buy. So you can create a enter and exit strategy, or you can just create an entry strategy and then have your stop loss and take profits down there. Okay, so that's just a basic introduction into what I think is a useful and practical way to kind of test your strategies. And the cool thing about TradingView is that you can look at Uniswap based assets. So I can go to Uniswap and I can look at, for example, Uni. So this is Uniswap in F. And so I can see how this performed. And then you can just click add to chart, get an idea. This one did pretty decently, actually, but it's not enough data. Only 5 trades, 60% of them were profitable, the average trade. And this one doesn't take into account the commissions that you'll pay on Uniswap, which is 0.2%. So you'd want to add that in, et cetera, et cetera. Now let's say that you've developed a strategy that you really like and you know it works and you're really excited about it. The next thing you want to do is you want to automate the strategy. So as you can see here, I have a bunch of alerts. And so what you can do is you can add alerts, and those will be based off of studies, not strategies. So let's get rid of this and go to talk about studies. So here, there's also a link to this simple study. I have a simple study. This is a 1% move alert, and this will work on anything. This could be days, this could be minutes. So if I did a 5-minute on Ethereum USD, there, as you can see here, there's nothing happening. But if I did on days, 1%, there's a lot happening. So when it goes negative 100, that's a 1% move down. When it goes positive 100, that's a positive move up for this blue one here. So I'm overlaying a bunch of other data so I can analyze what's happening. But essentially, let's talk about how this is working. So simple study, 1% move. I just say if the close crosses over the previous close, so close 1 is the one before. If you do 2, that would be 2 ticks before. If it was hours, it would be 2 hours before. And then I'm multiplying it by 1%, and then this multiplied by 0.99, which is under 1%. So when it crosses under, it'll make the signal negative 100, and if it crosses over, it'll make the signal positive 100, and by default, the signal is 0, def val is 0. And we'll plot that. So once we plot that, we add that to our chart. I will click add to chart. So there it is. And what I can do, for example, I can do 5 minutes. And let's just go ahead and put this on Uniswap. So DeFi, let's put Uniswap. And this is Uniswap at Ether. And we'll do a 5-minute. So in the 5-minute, this happens occasionally. So let's say I built a strategy, like we talked about earlier, and I determined that, oh, this strategy is pretty good for when to do a buy signal or something like that. You'll then go over here after you add to chart. You can then go to your alerts, and you'll click up here, add alert, and you'll put condition. You'll use your 1% move. That's what this is called, 1% move alert study. And you'll say when that indicator line crosses the value of, so crosses up, usually crosses up, and if it crosses up point or up above 99, so it goes to 100 when there's a 1% move, then once per minute, I would like to send the data to this webhook. So you can create a URL that will receive this data, save it to your database, or execute your trade bot, which we've covered in previous videos and things like that. Or maybe you'll have it send you an email. It'll just send an email to you, and it'll tell you a certain message. I usually put mine in like JSON so that I can receive the information in computer readable code, but you could put it in natural language, you can put it in however you'd like to do it. So there's that, and then you click create. And what that will do is every time the event occurs, it'll send the message either to your email or to your webhook URL. So pretty cool. And you can activate and deactivate a variety of alerts. But this is great and this runs when you're not even on the computer. So you save these alerts, you go to sleep, and the alerts will be sent to your URL or to your email, or you can have it notify you via the app when a certain event takes place. So you can use code from the previous strategy to say, hey, when the volatility of the Bitcoin or when the VIX moves this percent or that percent, and you can add an alert and say, alert me. So that's pretty cool, and that'll help with your automating your trade strategies. Now let's say you don't want to do all this. There are some pretty cool platforms that have emerged in decentralized financial markets. Let's take a look at those. One really cool platform is called Set Protocol. And what Set Protocol allows you to do is look at either social traders or various traders who arbitrarily trade stuff. And so these guys trade stuff, and you can see how their historical performance has been and look at RoboSets. So these are the ones that I like. So you can look at the crossovers or various things like that. And so look, for example, this one did 59% in 3 months. And what does it do? It just looks at the technical indicator of RSI, or Relative Strength Index, of BTC, and it trades CUSDC and BTC based on when there's a certain kind of move. You can click on it, get more information on it, and then you can just click buy. And then you put how much ETH you want, and then you click preview buy, and then you click submit buy. So yeah, you can just select any of these strategies, and you don't have to trust them. You can look at the descriptions, and then you can write out the code for yourself to see how they perform now that you know how to use PineScript. But people have already done these things, and they've created these automated strategies. You can see how well they've performed, and then you can just send funds into them. So that's pretty cool. Another platform is DHedge. These are fund managers or automated strategies that you can follow, and you can simply connect your wallet. You can look at the performance and how much value has been associated with a particular strategy. And then, for example, I could click here and say, oh, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. He's going to take 20% of the performance fee, but he's not going to charge me a management fee. He's so far in just 1 week done, or in 1 month, he's done 31%. I like this, and a lot of people invest with this person. Let me invest with them too. You can get information on how they work, etc., and then you can invest in them. Also, you can take your automated strategy and you can add it to DHedge, and then people can invest with you, and then you can take a certain percentage of the returns off of that. You definitely check your jurisdiction to make sure that you're following the law regarding allowing people to follow your trades, and that's really important. But yeah, there are platforms like DHedge and Set Protocol, which are DeFi platforms that allow you to follow automated strategies or discretionary strategies. Additionally, if you want to create your own strategies, you can add them to both these platforms to gain more capital for what you're doing. So that's a little bit of information on how to create an automated strategy and how to test your ideas. I hope this video was useful.